Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the Profit Lab podcast. Woo! I hope everybody enjoyed that little musical intro. I love rock music, so that's exactly what I'm listening all the time. Welcome, guys, and welcome to the Profit Lab podcast. I'm your host, Marie Torossian. I'm a CFO and auditor, certified public accountant, and a chartered global management accountant. And I serve the entrepreneur community and business owners through my CPA firm, Marie Torossian CPA, and the management consulting company that I have, the Profit Lab. Which brings me, the Profit Lab podcast serves to expand our mission to empower entrepreneurs by bringing their stories to the masses. We are thrilled to tell your story to inspire, empower, and uplift other entrepreneurs. So check out our website, theprofitlab.biz/podcast. So with that, last week, we actually launched the podcast for the first time. And I specifically spoke about my experience in my entrepreneur journey. And I shared some valuable tips, specifically 7 of them, that I learned from my experience and how you can avoid and do better. So with that, today is August 8th. And this is our second episode, as I said. And then we are going live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Facebook. And you can follow us at the Profit Lab Biz. On LinkedIn, on my personal LinkedIn, Marie Torossian CPA, CGMA, and on my YouTube channel, Marie Torossian CPA. So make sure to subscribe, follow, like, and share on all of the platforms, or whichever one that you are watching or listening us on. So go ahead and share that information so others can learn from our stories. So with that, my guest today is Rachel LeRoy, founder of HipMaps. She is a custom map designer who uses fresh approach to bring joy through personalized maps with a modern twist. So let me welcome you, Rachel.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, Rachel. I'm so happy you're here. You are my first guest on this show, so it's super, super special, and I'm super excited and energetic.
Thank you. I am honored.
We are so happy to meet with you. So, Rachel, the whole point of, like I said, the Profit Lab podcast is to bring stories of individuals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, bring their stories and their overall challenges and stuff that they've gone through as they built their business, so that other entrepreneurs can be inspired, motivated by their story. So today we are going to be inspired by your story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? So we want to get to know you, the Rachel, the person, before the entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, I live in Sonoma, California, Northern California, so it's quite early. Usually I'm not talking at this hour. But I have an interesting upbringing that not a ton of people have these days, in that I grew up on a dairy farm in Vermont, in New England. And I think, not to jump to the entrepreneurial journey, but I think growing up on a farm and being deeply rooted to the earth definitely helped shape who I am, as far as, wanting to work with the earth, wanting to share the beauty of it. And then also my parents were just, they were wonderful role models, in that because they were farmers, they worked for themselves. And I never really thought that I would be an entrepreneur, because I just didn't think of it that, I just didn't have that mindset. But then here I am. So, and I loved your story last week of talking about, your dad and how he, having his businesses really, it shapes us without us even knowing it. Right. And yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't even realize how much that affected me until I got in my 40s. So Yeah, absolutely. So tell us how you transition. I mean, obviously you had a very busy career, and you could walk us through if you like, but what made you kind of get motivated to start your own business and your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, it all comes to maps. So on the farm, picture the kitchen
Woo!
table of this Vermont farmhouse. And I was the kid who had my nose in the atlas. Like I just loved maps, and I would pore over maps as often as I could. And, back in the 80s, aerial photos were not nearly as common as they are now because we didn't have Google. And so whenever I would see an aerial photo, I was just fascinated by it. I had to figure out what I was looking at, what was the perspective, what was the angle. And so in college, I studied environmental science, and I was able to take a class where I learned how to make maps in this class, and it was using software. And so I've been making maps for over 20 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and I worked in various industries. I did vineyard design for 15 years. And
Cool.
when I decided, yeah, it was very interesting. But when I decided to leave that company in 2019, I said, I want to be a consultant. And there's a lot of different things that I can do because I have organizational skills and I have management and human resources, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that really drove me was I said, I want to make sure I do something with maps, because maps are what lights me up. Whenever I would work with maps, it would be the best day. That would be the best part of the day. So in 2019, I became a consultant, and I started working with wineries making maps for their tasting rooms to show people where their grapes were grown and the wines that they were pouring. And in early 2020, I joined a networking group, a local networking group, and I sat next to a wonderful woman, and I was telling her about what I was doing. And she said, have you ever thought about making a map for a wedding? And I had not ever thought of that. And like, and what she was picturing was like a site plan. But that question was the spark that led me to be an entrepreneur. Like that one thing, because I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, how many times have I gone to a wedding somewhere else out of town? I don't know, say Nashville, right? I'm there for 3 days and the wedding is 6 hours. And I don't know where the great restaurants are. I don't know where the cool things to go and what to see and what to do. And mostly because I love to eat, where do I eat? I don't want to waste a meal.
And I don't want to waste time researching for hours.
Exactly. Scrolling through Yelp for like a half an hour, and you're still hungry and you still don't know where to go. So that was the spark. I tried to launch that idea in March of 2020. I launched
just during COVID.
Well, I launched it the beginning of the week, and by the end of the week, that Friday, there was the lockdown everywhere. And then the following week, the headlines were full of how many people had canceled their weddings.
Oh my gosh.
And I went, yes, okay. This is a rough start.
Sounds familiar to me.
Oh, I know. We have so much in common in that. But, looking back on it, everything happens for a reason, the timing, everything. So I really needed to learn a lot of stuff before I launched a company. And I launched the idea. I didn't have a great name for it. I tried to use someone else's smartphone app. I didn't know anything about marketing and sales. And so basically it was a blessing that COVID happened, because I spent the next year soaking up tons of knowledge. I learned all kinds of stuff about marketing, just like you were talking about in yours. Like we were so similar. I had so many skills, and they were not in the marketing department.
Yeah.
And here. So it's like a whole different thing, right? It's a whole different thing. So what I did was in 2021, I rebranded to HipMaps, because I needed a name that was catchy and that would people would, you hear HipMaps and you're like, oh, it's something to do with mapping. I don't exactly know, but at least I know it's mapping. Where Rachel LeRoy Consulting meant nothing.
Right.
Yeah. So I rebranded to HipMaps. I built my own smartphone app. So I hired a developer who's
Yes.
amazing, out of Michigan. We designed the app, we built it, we launched it. I had all these skills under my belt now with marketing and sales. I'd been laying the foundation for this for over a year at this point. And so I was able to launch HipMaps in June. I think it was June of it was June or July of 2021. And because I had, tried this idea in 2020, I felt like I hit the ground. I hit the ground running. I had already set all this work up. I had already been networking for over a year. I had all these contacts. I had all these skills that I didn't have in 2020.
True.
So it was a blessing. It was a blessing.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting because I know I'm the first guest on your show, and I'm curious to see how many people come in and say, I've always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was just a matter of time. And I'm not that person. I just sort of went from like, oh, I'm going to be a consultant to do a lot of things, to this spark and this idea.
Yes.
And then boom, here I am. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But if you had asked me 10 years ago, would I be doing this? I'd be like, no way.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us start as consultants. I mean, I did that as a side gig for a little while I was still had a full-time job. And I think that's our way of kind of thinking like an entrepreneur, like wanting to do something is pulling us away, like to do something different. And then eventually you're like, well, yes, I definitely have to take this as a real business and not just a consultant. And even consulting is kind of like a business. It's just that you're alone versus in a business setting, you're starting to work and hire and outsource and all that stuff. Now you're managing. Not only is it you, but it's you and a team. Even if it's 1099ers or whatever it is, it's still a team. You're managing as a business versus you just go to the job and leave. But yeah, absolutely. And then it includes, like you said, the marketing and the sales and all these other pieces have to play with it. Yeah, absolutely. We have way so much in common because, I launched the firm in January 2020. I was like, until then I was just a consultant. I was jumping from project to project.
Yeah.
And as soon as I'm like, really? Like I just launched the firm. Like I thought, yeah.
Yeah. I will say one great thing about what I do is that I can make a map anywhere in the world. So even though I live in an area that we had probably the longest lockdown of anybody in the US in Northern California, we had so many restrictions that a lot of the rest of the US didn't have. So our events industry was just clobbered. But I could go market in Georgia and Florida and Texas and areas that were more open, where people were still having events and the economy was still flowing. Where here, I basically hardly marketed to people in my area for the first 6 months of my business. And it was just, it was weird to not market to the people I saw in person, but it was just the way it was.
Right. And that's like a decision you make as a business owner when you're looking like, where are my customers, right? Which brings me actually to my next question. What is your usual target audience? I know you mentioned kind of like the wedding thing, but is that the only way to get your clients, or is there other ways that you are attracting clients?
Well, one of the things that I learned, and one of the things that I think is so important for entrepreneurs, is to constantly evolve. So when I launched the idea, my focus was only on weddings. I was only thinking about weddings. And clearly that's not a good business model, because there were record numbers of weddings canceled in 2020. So what part of my rebranding and rethinking of this whole thing was, how many other people can I help with this idea? And so I have the maps I make can be used for so many different situations. And it's festivals that have a lot of things going on in
yes.
different places, and they get
Right.
people to the right place at the right time. And the main thing that HipMaps is used for are recommendations. So what restaurants and breweries and wineries and hikes and shops does someone recommend? And I always call them the host. So though that's the biggest thing. And this host can be a couple getting married for sure, with people coming in from out of town, but also businesses holding events like conferences or annual meetings,
That's
or
true.
any kind of business event where you're gathering people together, and as well as lodging, because hotels and inns and bed and breakfasts and vacation rental homes like Airbnbs, people are coming in from out of town, and they, how many times have you gone up to the front desk and been like, I'm starving, where's your favorite restaurant? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's cool? Where should I go?
Good.
Yeah. So the HipMaps idea is let the host give their guests a snapshot of their town and share these personal recommendations. Like, it really is a local's take on the area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for example, I do some Google reviews myself to be like the local guide for Google in here in Miami. But yeah, I see that totally. How if I am inviting a bunch of people, let's say for an event that I put up, I want to say, hey, these are my top recommendations as someone who lives here. So it's very different when it comes to. That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. And the thing that I haven't mentioned this yet, but the thing that makes HipMaps different is that I make a map from of all these places, so people have an idea of where they are. But in my smartphone app, you can see your location right on your host's map. So you know where you are in relation to what's being recommended. You know if you can walk to something or you need to drive or get an Uber. You also see, and then you also see the host comments about each place. So they can say, we love the barbecue here. We love the sampler of their beer over here. This is like a super cool art gallery with local artists. You say a little something about each place so that people have a much better idea of what each place is offering. And then people can get directions right in the app. So you're going to the right place.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think what I like most about it is that there are all these different features, is that, the personal touch from the host, right? Yeah. So that's always the most amazing, that engagement and the personal touch from the host.
Yeah. Really. And people love that. They love that. They want something special, right? They want the host to be like, hey, I thought of this, and I want you to have it. I want to share this with you. And that's, part of my whole thing, my whole mission is spreading joy. And the HipMaps is like this domino effect of spreading joy for both the host and the guest.
Right. So I know, just because for our listeners, and they will not be seeing the banner. So before we continue, I just want to say, guys, you can check out Rachel's company at HipMaps.com. That's HIPMAPS.com. So make sure to check her website and get more information on what she's working on now. So with that, Rachel, so I know you mentioned a few challenges here and there, and sales and marketing being one of them. What are other, let's say, maybe super difficult challenges you may have had that you really had to, let's say, either get some professional help or like self-development or whatever it is that you had to, what were those challenges that you were able to overcome?
Well, one of the things, because no one else does what I do, people make maps, but they don't have this app. This app is completely innovative. And the awareness of telling, getting the word out that this even exists has been my biggest challenge, because, it's not like I'm making a new tennis shoe and I don't have to explain to people what a tennis shoe is, right? It's just, every single time I have to explain this whole new concept And it's much easier to show it to somebody, to pull out
Right,
my phone
visually, yes.
and show it to them. But I can't obviously meet with every single person who might want this. So my biggest challenge is conveying what this is and how it works. And so I've initially, like kind of like you, when I first started, I built my own website, not with HipMaps. There's no way I could have done that with HipMaps. So I hired a wonderful website developer, and she helped me design a website that is, and we're actually updating it again. Like that's a constant thing.
Yes.
And we're using videos and visuals and trying to convey what this app does. That's a huge thing. So the website was a huge deal. I also joined several different networking groups and associations. And a lot of different associations of professionals in the industry that I was targeting. So associations of wedding professionals and event planners. And that's been my best way of getting the word out to the planners of these events so that they can then know whether or not it's a good fit for their event that they're putting on.
Right. And it kind of pinpoints like some of the customers are actually the event planner, maybe, because sometimes, companies hire event planning company. So then you might want to be targeting the event planner, that company versus the actual company. So
And
so it's a lot of,
I have a split in my business where I have B2C business to consumer and B2B business to business. I have both clients because the couples getting married are customers, but yet a lot of my work is with businesses. And so it's been a tricky balance because, my Instagram feed is definitely targeted more for the consumer and yet my LinkedIn feed is a little bit more targeted to the businesses.
True.
One of the challenges that I faced was figuring out how to do that and where to do that, right? Which social media platforms to focus on. Where are the people that I want to target?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that we learn as we take more of those marketing classes, or if we are working with someone who's super knowledgeable to kind of help you separate how to market for your audience in the different channels, right? So absolutely. Even though Instagram is also great for businesses, but it also depends, right? So if more of the individuals are there, so, and especially your specific audience, say those who are getting married and you want to target them there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Yeah. I didn't realize how much marketing was going to be one of the biggest challenges. And I'm glad I went through the challenge because I think I learned so much. I've pushed myself so much in the last 2 years. This podcast is a result of trying to get marketing done, and I'm very transparent about it. 2 podcasts now. And that's because, and I do, a part of the firm, the CPA firm, we do work, sometimes, business to business, sometimes business to consumer. So it's similar to you because, for example, taxes could be individual or it could be business. On the other hand, I do, let's say we have accounting and bookkeeping work for individuals, wealthy individuals that want to have someone do all their accounting for them. But then we also do it for businesses too. So, it's so similar in what you've gone through as well. Very similar.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for all of the teachers that I've had in the last few years because I've taken tons of classes and webinars and seminars and month-long things, both, just in all kinds of different areas, including mindset, because you mentioned this in your podcast issue, whatever it was, volume, what was it? Episode. I was going to get there. It's early, folks. Mindset is a huge deal. And it is, when you're an entrepreneur and you're making the list of things that you are not good at, which is which those are the things that you should be learning more about and challenging yourself with, you
Right.
got to include the mindset, the mental
Absolutely.
part of it. Yep.
Yes. For me, even thinking like, I always thought of myself, very open-minded. I'm always wanting to learn all that stuff. But there's something about the mindset, because you will eventually hit that entrepreneurial plateau, I would say, where you're like, okay, I'm stuck. I don't know how to go, what to do next. And, then instead of like falling apart, if you have a mentor or coach, which the way I added that into my life has changed my mindset and just help push me a little bit more to get out of those stuck moments. So, and that's why I offer it now through the Profit Lab as well. So that's amazing. Mindset is definitely needed for everyone, because we all get stuck at some point in time and we need help.
Yeah. And the whole thing's a roller coaster, and you got to be able to have the skills to handle that roller coaster. Yeah. Yes,
absolutely. And then something you said about when you do the list and you realize, okay, I'm good at these things, but I'm not good at those things. And I want to learn about them. And there's that balance between you want to learn and do yourself, and then the stuff that you want to learn, but find someone to delegate and oversee.
Absolutely.
Those are two things too that I had to learn it.
Yeah. I want to know how to do everything. And I want to know the theory and the strategy, but I don't want to do it all. Absolutely not.
I agree with you.
I want to know enough about how people look at a website and their behavior and how long of an attention span they have and where they look on a page. I want to know about that, but I don't want to design the website.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah. That was a big learning for me as well. Yeah. And I think many of us go through that, and that's why that plateau I mentioned, it's true, because you get stuck and you're like, oh, do I update my website right now, or should I send the emails out, or should I finish this work? I mean, they're all important.
Yes. Yeah.
So we definitely go through that. So I love it. I love your story. I love it so much. So with all of these challenges and all those things, and I know we're getting closer to the 30-minute mark, because, we try to stay very, within 30 to 45 minutes, business owners, usually have limited time. So, what I wanted to ask you is that, just as I did my wrap up, with a few takeaways for others. So if there were 3 things that an entrepreneur should know from your experience, what would they be?
Okay. The first one is easy, because this was the hardest one for me. Done is better than perfect. That is my motto.
I love that. Thank you.
Yes.
Don't pick on the little things. Just get it out.
Just do it, send it, launch it, get it out there. It's never going to be perfect.
No.
Stop wasting your time. Don't write 20-minute emails. Just get it done. It's done is better than perfect.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely. I love that.
Yep. Number 2 is, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that go into that. You got to have patience. You have to work hard, but you have to be balanced. Mm-hmm. You cannot burn out. You have to take care of yourself. You have to sleep. You have to eat well. You have to exercise. You have to rest. This is a long-term thing. And if you find yourself realizing that you haven't taken a day off in a month, you better take that day off.
I can be blamed for that quite a few times.
Yes. I'm speaking my own advice to myself right now.
Yes. And it does come out of your own experiences, right? Like I know I've done it many times, and I tell myself too, like, don't do this again. And I find myself doing it again. And I think I've gone about 12 weeks working straight and then just literally crashing, just getting home on a Friday. And I'm like, okay, I can't even keep my eyes open anymore. I just need to shut down. And that is a horrible way to live, because then you're messing up a whole bunch of other things in your body and your mind, and then you completely shut down. So that's a very good advice. Thank you.
And I find that because I love what I do so much, I don't realize how much I'm working because it's all so great and I love it.
Yes.
But it's very important to stop doing that. Once in a while, you just have to stop.
I agree with you. Like one of the things I realized when once I started getting into marketing and all that, I'm like, wow, I'm actually loving this. So like, for example, podcasting was something I really enjoyed if you had asked me back in 2018, I was doing consulting on the side that I would have to do a podcast, I would be freaking out, like scared. And here I am, I'm doing it. I actually love it, So, and like you said, and when you're loving what you're doing and you have a really great goal and a vision of where you want to go, you kind of just keep adding, you push yourself, but then you really have to stop at some point and rest. Everybody needs some rest.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I love it. So, and what's your third recommendation?
Third one is find a way to afford getting help and try to do it before you actually need it. Because when you realize you need it, it's probably a little bit too late. So I use freelancers. Freelancers are amazing. I have a couple of them and I have a couple more like on call. They're just amazing. And so freeing up the time, I don't need to schedule all the social media posts. There's no way that's a good use of my time. I have a much better use of my time trying to get the word out and sales and actually making the maps, all building the relationships.
Right.
Finding a way to afford help is very important.
Yes, I love that. These are really, really great recommendations. And I feel with you because I've gone through the same things myself, and I love it. This is great. So I wanted to bring everybody's attention that, Rachel is making this awesome, awesome offer to all our viewers and our listeners. The special offer is you can get 50% off any custom map that you would order with Rachel, using a discount code Profit Lab, as in one word, Profit Lab at checkout on HipMaps.com. So I appreciate that, Rachel. Thank you. I think our listeners and viewers will love it too.
Very, very, very welcome.
Awesome. So Rachel, this was great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Is there any other last minute message that you would like to leave to our viewers and our listeners?
Oh, stay fresh.
Stay fresh.
Always evolve. Always learn, always evolve. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Stay fresh.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really relevant, very important. We got to stay on top of our game all the time when we're business owners, for sure. Well, that was great, Rachel. Congratulations so much for delivering great work to your clients and building this business and learning so much through your business. And to all our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to subscribe, follow, like, and share the content on any of the platforms or all of the platforms that you are watching or listening us on. And let's empower each other through our experiences. So until the next episode, have a wonderful and blessed rest of your week.